Good afternoon and welcome back to Dr. Logic awkwardly does more Buddhist logic in her kitchen. In this video, I'm going to give you two more examples of arguments that are in the three-step argument form. The first one is fairly straightforward. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to write it out. You should be able to see what the structure is from the way that I have structured them. Anyway, first one, thesis. This guy has color. So this guy is the paksha, has color, is the sajya, our target property. What is our ground? Our ground is that this guy has the color red. So we can observe that through perception. You can also take it through my testimony. The warrant then is that whatever has the color red has a color. And that is what connects having the color red with having a color, i.e. the hetu and the sajya, and therefore we can kind of observe through perception that he does in fact have the color red, and therefore I've established that he has a color. So not a very interesting argument, but a good one that follows the three-step argument form. But now consider this argument. This guy has a brain. So that is my thesis. And I'm going to argue for the paksha, this guy, having the target property, namely having a brain. The ground. My ground is that this guy was made in outer space. You can see he's even got his outer space outfit on. So, you can otherwise take it on faith that yes, he was made in outer space. And then my warrant is that whatever was made in outer space has a brain. So therefore, this guy was made in outer space, he must have a brain. Both of those arguments follow exactly the same three-step format. While the first one was kind of boring, not really interesting, hopefully nobody felt that that was a bad argument. I mean, it's deficient in other ways in terms of like relevance or, kind of engendering new knowledge, but structurally it's good. But hopefully you all also had the intuition that the other argument about proving this guy has a brain is not a good argument. I have ended up with a completely outlandish conclusion and I justified it through completely outlandish warrants. So what does being made in outer space have to do with having a brain? Why do I think that this thing was made in outer space? Any of these sorts of questions are things that you could ask. The point of this is to show that while this three-step structure might be necessary on kind of the Buddhist account of good argument, it might be necessary for an argument being good, but it's certainly not going to be sufficient. In fact, you might want to say that there was something really problematic about the warrant that I gave, where I said, well, whatever is made in outer space has a brain. Well, therefore, this guy must have a brain because I've just told you he was made in outer space. So there's going to be constraints on the justification or on the warrant that we want to be able to introduce. This is what will help us be able to separate arguments of that first type that I gave you from arguments of the second type, because that one seems like a good argument, this one seems like a bad argument, but they can't be distinguished on just the three-step structure because they both have it. So what we want to do is we want to actually look at the statement of the warrant and identify what are the good warrants and what are the bad warrants. So what are warrants and what are what is sometimes called pseudo justifications. So they look like justifications, but they aren't really. Sometimes these are also called fallacious warrants. So things that look like perfectly good argumentations might in fact not be if they involve some sort of fallacious reasoning incorporated in the argument. So this is what we will look at in the next video. What could these fallacious warrants be? What is a pseudo justification and how do we separate it from good justifications? Because what we've seen in these examples is that while the three-step argument form might be necessary for a good argument, it's definitely not sufficient. So in order to give a complete story, we will have to come back and we'll have to look at how to exclude the pseudo justifications from creeping into our arguments. Join me next time for some talk of fallacies. Take care and see you then.